Grand risings, everyone.
Grand
Grand
Rising.
Rising.
All right,
Rising.
we're excited to be welcoming you here to this show today. This is Dr. Russ. We're going to be standing in for Lakeisha LeGrand, also known as Madam Finance. She's
Ooh.
got some powerful things going on today, so it is my honor and privilege to be able to stand in for her. And as always, I want to follow her footsteps, and we're going to get things started with a millionaire success story. And this gentleman is very powerful, what he's been able to accomplish. His name is Junior Bridgman, and he was a former NBA player and successful business owner known for his impressive transition from sports to entrepreneurship. Born on September 17th, 1953, in East Chicago, Indiana, Ulysses Junior Bridgman played college basketball at the University of Louisville, where he showcased his skills and versatility as a forward and is testament to his ability and skill. Bridgman was selected by the Los Angeles Lakers as the eighth overall pick in 1975 NBA draft, but was traded to the Milwaukee Bucks, where he spent the majority of his career. Throughout his 12-year NBA tenure, Bridgman was known for his strong work ethic, consistency, and leadership, playing for teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Chicago Bulls. After retiring from the NBA, Bridgman built a successful business empire by investing in fast food franchises. He initially started with Wendy's and later expanded to own hundreds of Wendy's and Chili's locations. At its peak, his company, Bridgman Foods Incorporated, operated over 450 restaurants across the U.S. Bridgman eventually sold his restaurant empire and diversified his investments. He acquired the Heartland Coca-Cola Bottling Company, which oversees Coca-Cola operations in several states, and that's a major. His net worth has been estimated to be over $600 million, making him one of the wealthiest former athletes. Bridgman's remarkable journey from the basketball court to becoming one of the wealthiest former athletes underscores his business acumen and perseverance. His investments, which also include interests in sports-related ventures and real estate, have established him as a leader both in the boardroom and in the community. Beyond his financial success, Bridgman was dedicated to philanthropy. He actively supported various charitable causes and organizations focusing on education and youth development, demonstrating his commitment to giving back. His story is an inspiring example of how athletes can successfully pivot into business and continue to thrive after their sports careers have ended. Bridgman's success story is often cited as a model for athletes transitioning into business. Junior Bridgman passed away actually very recently at the age of 71. His sudden death occurred on Tuesday, March 11, 2025, during a fundraising event at the Galt House Hotel in Louisville, where he suffered a medical emergency. The former NBA star and business mogul could not be revived despite immediate medical attention. His passing was later confirmed by the hotel's ownership company, leaving the sports and business communities mourning the loss of a true pioneer. And one of the things that makes his accomplishment so powerful is when you look at a lot of former athletes. I'll give you some statistics here. 78% of NFL players face financial troubles within 2 years of their retirement. The NBA, 60% are in the same boat after 5 years. So for him to be able to amass this great fortune and this tremendous business acumen at the end of his career is a true testament of his abilities. So we definitely want to acknowledge him. He did a very powerful job, and we're excited for the life he was able to live. And so with that, we're going to get ready to transition into our guest for today. Gentleman, I've had a chance to know him for over 20 years. I've had a chance to watch his business acumen develop and grow over the years, and I truly count it an honor and privilege to call him a friend. Robert Doc Reid is an experienced program manager responsible for managing a $5 million federal grant in Flint, Michigan. He managed multi-sector community partners and 2 programs at the Greater Flint Health Coalition. Mr. Reid leads program addressing social determinants of health and has served on executive leadership teams, facilitating leadership development, strategy, and business growth. Mr. Reid is the founder of Bankable Financial, empowering individuals, families, and business owners with financial fitness programs. His focus is strengthening the whole person through financial coaching and education. Dr. Reid serves on executive boards of United Family Ministries, a faith-based organization, Burden Bearers, a veteran sports service organization, president of the Berkeley African American Parent Network, a parent-led student academic support organization. And his experiences include project manager for Greater Flint Health Coalition, licensed insurance agent since 2005, personal insurance, life, health, property, and casualty, and employee benefits and advanced planning. And with that, it's my honor and privilege to introduce to you Dr. Robert Dot Reid. Take it away, sir.
Hey, thank you so very, very much. I appreciate that. Really excited to have an opportunity to speak with you all this morning. Grand Rising to everyone. And I always say that Grand Rising, because I love to set my day with intention and I expect great things. And so you should expect great things as well. And I don't like talking at people. I'm actually the son of a preacher. And so as a PK, I'm used to having people talk back to me. And I really want to have more of a conversation with you, if that's okay. If that's okay, you can put 1 in the chat or you can come off mute and say, yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Awesome.
That's good,
Thank you so very much. And so really, thank you for that introduction. I don't have to spend time talking about myself. I just want to let you know that I'm very passionate about helping people really tap into the power that's within them and really operate from biblical principles. So my viewpoint when I talk about finances and really what that means to you comes from the Bible, biblical principles. And when I say biblical principles, I just want you to understand there is 2 systems operating right now, right? And so I'm a person of faith, and that means that the system and the vision that I have for my life could be very different than the system and the vision, that God has for my life, right? And sometimes it's not aligned. You guys agree? Have you ever been there before?
Yep.
Okay. And so one of the things I really focus on is making sure that I have alignment and I meet in the sweet spot, right? The sweet spot is where you have your vision, you have God's vision, and it overlaps. And you want to make sure that you stay in the overlapping place. That's when you have influence, kingdom influence, and you're able to do some great and phenomenal things. And so what I'm going to share with you all today is really 4 common risks when it comes to planning for retirement. Would that be something that's helpful for you all to know what to look out for when you are either headed toward retirement or maybe you're just changing the direction from your work life to do what you feel you've been called to do in purpose? Is that something that is beneficial to you all?
Yes, that would be beneficial. Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So let me go ahead and share my screen, prepared a little presentation for you. And again, this is going to be more of a conversation. So you can feel free to, chime in and speak with me if you have questions. So the first thing I want to talk about when we're talking about primary risk when planning for retirement, there are actually 4 things, okay, that I'm going to cover. So the first thing that we definitely want to actually plan for, it's kind of funny, but it's reality as you look around with everything going on lately, especially with the pandemic. A lot of things have changed, but typically when you're planning for retirement, have you ever thought that perhaps you could live past your money and the assets and resources you had planned after you stop working? Has anybody thought about that?
Absolutely.
Thought about it. Did I prepare for it? No.
So one of the things that, I've seen is I actually, my grandfather was able, my mother's dad, he passed away at 91 years old. And I promise you for about 10 to 15 years, when we would have family functions, he would always say, hey, you better live right. because I'm going to heaven, and if you don't live right, I won't see you there, right? And I used to always laugh, but I noticed it. I paid attention that he would always talk about, hey, I didn't think I lived this long. Why am I still here? Come on, God, take me now. And I'm just like, wait a minute, wait a minute. Like, we don't want you to go. But that made me think about what are we doing to make sure that we plan to make sure that if we stay here longer than we think we are, that we'll be okay, right? Because when you stop working, believe it or not, you actually have to plan for another 30 to 40 years past your working years, right? And so last year, there were over 100,000 people that reached the age of 100, according to Pew Research Center. Do you know anybody who has hit 100 years old or beyond?
Yeah, a few.
Right? And so it's a very real possibility. So when you're planning for those years, what about the things that you need to think about? Like planning for joint life expectancy. See, my grandmother is still here, right? And so my grandfather passed, I would say 2 years ago, having conversations with my grandmother. My grandfather had a great job with the railroad, so he had good retirement benefits and different things like that. But while you're planning, you're also going to be planning not only for your life expectancy, but also the life of your spouse or partner, right?
Right.
And so that means that not only is it your 30 or 40 years, what about them? And typically women will live longer than men for a lot of different reasons. We do a lot of things, take a lot of risks that women don't. But some of the things that we're able to look at is annuity income, which is basically a guaranteed check. Are you all familiar with annuities?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay. So an insurance company does two things. They write life insurance, so they will give money when a person passes away, but they also write annuity contracts, which make sure that they provide a guaranteed paycheck that you cannot outlive. Okay. So that is an option when we're thinking about, well, what do I do in retirement about my money? Well, your plan should include some type of guaranteed paycheck. And when you finally get to the point where you've been saving for retirement and you're ready to go ahead and turn on the guaranteed check option, they're going to ask you three questions. They're going to say, well, do you want us to pay you what they call straight life, which means you want us to pay you for as long as you live, even if all the money in this that you've been saving has been used up, we will contractually still send you a check until the day you die. That's called straight life. Okay. The second is your life with period certain. And so that basically means you will continue to have a paycheck for the rest of your life that you can't outlive. But let's say that you pass away before you've received all the money that you saved up before you started getting that guaranteed check. Well, you can have a period certain. And that basically means that, hey, pay me. And if I don't pass away before all the money is used up, pay it out over 10 years, and then it'll be done. Okay. And then the last thing is you can have an option for joint life. Joint life is basically, hey, I'm married. I know that if I pass away, my wife is dependent on my income. So I want to make sure that the checks can continue to come so that she can maintain her lifestyle. And so those checks will be guaranteed until she passes away, and then that'll be it. Is that pretty clear? Does everybody understand that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what people don't realize is that that's great to have a guaranteed check, but one of the things that you also have to know is that if you don't use all the money you've saved up when you have an annuity, whether it's straight life, period certain, or joint life, if you pass away with money still in that account, guess where it goes?
Mhm.
Back
Just
to
think again.
city.
It goes to them, right? They
It goes
keep
back
it.
to the company. That's
Yeah.
right. It
Mm,
doesn't go to your beneficiaries. It goes right back to the company. So it's a
mm.
risk, but it's one of those things you have to be aware of. The second thing that you definitely want to be aware of in retirement is taxes. And they say the only two certain things in life, death and what?
Taxes.
Taxes. So you have to solve for the taxes. And those who save and do a great job, they make sure that, hey, I'll make sure that I pay myself first. I make sure that I have everything set up. I've done everything that I know I need to do. They'll have income in retirement along with taxes. And so taxes actually are the largest expense in retirement for many. Okay. And so when you think about being in retirement and you say, okay, well, where's my money coming from if it's not coming from the job? It's often coming from Social Security check, a pension check, if you were fortunate enough to have that. It's coming from a contribution plan like a 403B, a 457B, or a 401k, or even an IRA, which is an individual retirement account. So those, when you start to take money from those accounts, you are able to put money away and not pay any taxes while it grows. However, when you start to take distributions, all of that income is considered taxable at ordinary tax rates. So when somebody says, "Oh, I got $1 million saved up," $1 million saved up that you didn't have to pay money taxes on while it grew to $1 million, and now you want to take that check. Typically, there's a thing called the 4% rule, which basically means they say, okay, well, you only want to withdraw 4% so that that money can continue to be there for you and provide you an annual income. But let's do some quick math. 4% of $1 million is $40,000 a year. Doesn't seem like a lot of money, does it?
Yeah.
40,000 for the whole year. You saved $1 million, but you're only going to take 40,000. That's 4%,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'll tell people, are you planning to be broke? Because most people, when you're in your working years, you made more than $40,000, or you're accustomed to living on more than that, right?
Right.
But what happens is you're basically planning to be broke because we set taxes in retirement, which means that $40,000 is also going to be taxed. So it ends up being less than even 40,000. So we understand how that could be a problem, right?
Yes.
All right. And even though the taxes have been historically low, what's going on in the country right now, right? Are the prices and the taxes and things, does it go up or is it going down?
Definitely not.
Everything seems to be going up. I
Yeah.
just went to Costco the other day, and we're a family of 6. So just going to the store, I've already conditioned my mind. I can't leave out of Costco without spending at least $100. I don't know if you guys shop at Sam's Club or Costco, but when I go to the grocery store, it's no way I can leave without spending at least $100. Guess how much my last bill was? Just take a wild guess.
150.
Times 2.
Wow.
Wow.
Times 2. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I won't get into it too much, but actually, you guys have heard of inflation, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Inflation is actually a silent tax because the things that you used to be able to buy for $100, now it takes you 200 or more to get the same thing. Have you guys experienced that?
Yeah.
So that's another consideration that we have to watch out for. And then the third one, now this is a big one too, cost of chronic healthcare, right? Because typically if you've been fortunate, when do you start to have to budget in expenses for healthcare, medical expenses? When you're younger or when you're older?
Older.
Older.
Right? So you have to actually pay attention to that and make sure that you have enough set aside to meet healthcare costs. But then also something else happens. We see that there are chronic healthcare expenses, and when we look at the stats, we see over 50% of women and 40% of men over the age of 65 years of age are going to require care for chronic health condition. Okay, something happened. You fell, broke something, and you got sick, heart attack, stroke, something happens, right? And so there's going to be care that needs to be paid for. And if you've ever known someone who's had to recover from a chronic healthcare situation, what are the options? Right back in the day, we used to just take care of the person in the home. But there's these things called nursing homes that people are like, well, I have to put mom or dad in a nursing home. And when they go and they check out their options, in Michigan last year, a nursing home cost $120,000 to $135,000 every year.
Mm-hmm.
That's very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, well, that's not an option for me. Well, what about the cost for assisted living? Meaning you can stay in the home. Maybe we'll have a skilled nurse or somebody come in and take care of you, right? Even that's expensive. That's $61,000 a year. So if you do everything right, you save money and you have these retirement accounts, how long will your assets last if one or both of you have a chronic healthcare event?
Not long.
Not long, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we definitely have to watch out for that risk. And the question becomes, do you currently have something in place like long-term care insurance to address those costs, right? And if you don't, there are conversations and things that you can begin to look at. And then the last area that we'll look at is actually negative market returns on your accounts. See, because we're putting these savings away for retirement in the market, right? Because you want growth. Is that right? But
Yes.
most people don't understand that there's an importance of not taking distributions out of those retirement accounts or investment accounts that are in the market when the market is down, right? It's important to have access to some safe, non-correlated source of income that it doesn't matter if the market's up or down, that pot of money is not going to be impacted. So I have a brief video that I want to share here, and hopefully you can hear the sound.
If you're saving for retirement, you're used to seeing the value of your accounts go up and down with the financial markets. However, once you get to retirement, market volatility may be a greater concern. If you take withdrawals from your retirement accounts when they have declined in value, it may have a greater long-term impact. The following hypothetical example illustrates this problem. Assume Dan retires with a $1 million retirement account, and that over the next 20 years, his account will have the same returns as the S&P 500 from 1973 through 1992. For this example, we'll ignore the impact of income taxes and investment expenses, which Dan would have to pay if this were an actual investment. We chose this return period for a couple of reasons. First, the average annual return over this 20-year period was 12.75%. However, there were also significant negative returns over the first 2 years. Let's see what would happen if Dan decided to take $75,000 out of his retirement account at the start of each year. Dan was able to take the full $75,000 withdrawal each year, a total of $1.5 million, and he still had almost $430,000 left in his account. Not a bad result. But what if Dan took a slightly different approach? Since the value of his account decreased significantly during the first 2 years, what if he skipped withdrawals in each of the years that followed, years 2 and 3? Dan took $150,000 less in total withdrawals, but his ending account balance increased by nearly $1.8 million. That's a big difference. In order to take advantage of this strategy and skip 2 years of withdrawals, Dan will need an alternate source of income that is not impacted by the market. You can't predict when market downturns will occur or how long they will last. You can prepare for them and reduce the impact they will have on your retirement.
All right. So I like that video, and really the question that I like to ask, just so we really begin to think about these things, is okay. On the TV, everybody's talking about, hey, you need to put your money here. It needs to have this growth. What about your return rate and all that type of stuff? So the question really for me is, well, where are you investing your safe money? Because how many of you on the line are actually gamblers?
Not with my
Gamblers?
retirement.
Any gamblers? You know,
No.
we was like, no, I don't gamble. That's not something I do, right? If I have some extra money that I don't mind if I lose, yeah, I may, go ahead and cash lots or whatever, but not when I need the money. And we need the money in retirement. But when you're looking at those accounts, it kind of feels like gambling, right?
Yeah.
So what's the alternative? And that's one of the things that I really like to have conversations around, is because there is something that you can do. And I always tell people, it's really not how much money you make, it's what you do with the money that you have, and really focus on what do you keep. So it's not what you make, it's what you keep. Okay. So one of the things that I use as a tool to address those 4 risks in retirement is actually permanent life insurance. Now, I like to ask the question, on a scale from 1 to 10, how well do you understand the different types of life insurance? And what you can do is actually put your number if it was on a scale from 1 to 10. So 1, I don't know anything about it. 10, I know a lot. I stay up to date. I know all the different types, of insurance that you have. Go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm curious to see how you score yourself, right? And then I want to share with you that there's actually a place for permanent life insurance when you're talking about your money and planning for retirement. So the number one benefit, no other financial instrument has the characteristics and the abilities and the options available than permanent life insurance. The very number one thing, we said earlier that the 2 certainties in life are death and taxes, right? So
Yeah.
if there was a way for you to have money somewhere that is 100% tax-free, that would be a bonus, right? And that's why it's so powerful. The other thing is you have income infusion when a spouse dies, because after all, it's life insurance. So I know growing up in the church, I've seen several people that I've known and they've passed on and then what are we doing? Chicken dinners and fundraisers and GoFundMe and everything, and could you chip in, right? Like that type of thing could be avoided with some simple planning so that when you have these things in place, you have an infusion of cash to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of during that difficult time. The second thing is actually it's the most efficient tax plan available because unlike the 401ks, the IRAs, those things that you're contributing money to, they call it defined contribution plans, where your money goes in tax free, but when it comes out, you have to pay taxes. When you build up another source of safe money using permanent life insurance, it still will grow tax free, but also it has tax free distributions and it has transfer of funds to your heirs and beneficiaries. Yep, tax free, 100%. So, really, when you begin to understand all the tools and levers that you have available to you, I always tell people the only thing that you're limited by is your creativity. There's actually an advanced planning idea that says wealthy people, what they do is they borrow and die. What does that mean? They know the difference between good debt and bad debt, right? And so they say, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll make sure that I'm borrowing while I'm alive. I'm borrowing money to buy my homes. I'm borrowing money to do this. I'm borrowing money to do that. I don't, but they don't have a plan ever to actually pay those things off. That's just not in their plan because they see down the road, they have somebody sit with them to say, hey, you know what? If you utilize this tool, you could actually have enough life insurance in place to pay off all the things that you have borrowed while you were living because you have this tax-free money to cancel out all those loans. But guess what? The family still owns all the assets. So imagine that. You make a plan to start buying assets, homes, businesses, what have you, and you allow your money to work for you. The third thing is what we talked about chronic health care in retirement. Well, life insurance policies have living benefits when you have the right policy, right? So a living benefit becomes a source of funds in a chronic health care event. So you don't have to think, well, where am I going to get the money to take care of a spouse or my mom or my dad because they've had a chronic health care situation? Well, if they had living benefits, that's a bucket of money that's tax-free that you have available to pay somebody to come to the house. It may be a family member. Hey, they're taking time off of work. Can they afford to do that? Well, now they can because you have money to pay them. It's also a safe alternative source of income in down markets, and that's what that video was about. You have to have, it's not a silver bullet. It's not like once and done, but it's something that complements. So like right now, when the market just took a dip, you don't have to say, oh my gosh, that was my only hope. You can say, well, that's all right. This year looks like the market's down, so I'm going to go over here to my permanent policy, and I'm going to take my income for the year out of this policy. That's how we're making better choices and decisions. And really, it's insurance for your investment portfolio, because if you think about the things that you have insurance for, people have no problem paying insurance for their car, no problem paying insurance for their house, right? No problem, maybe if you're savvy, paying insurance for disability. But what about you, right? That is one of the biggest things that we can do to make sure that we look out for the common risks in retirement. And what I'm going to do now is stop sharing and if I can take some questions.
I got to tell you, that was absolutely awesome. And I'm impressed. And I have my insurance licenses. And I've known about some of these things, but you brought some very serious information to the table. And I want to acknowledge you for that. I do have one question myself before we open up to the audience. What would you say is the main thing preventing people from being able to have a successful retirement?
That's a great question. One of the main challenges, and I don't care who you are, what level you are in life, one of the main things that I see people are challenged with is debt,
Hmm.
right? They have to fix the cash flow, right? What is coming in and what's going out. That's the main thing. And what's ironic in that situation is I've sat down with enough people who are, drawing retirement income, so they have a regular guaranteed check from some source. And I say, you actually don't have an income problem. You have a spending problem,
Hmm.
right? And that's just based on habits. Like, what can we do to reorganize what we have available to address some of the things we have? So I would say debt
Hmm.
really is one of the biggest things.
That's interesting.
Great question.
Joy has her hand up.
Yeah, this was some very good information. I wanted to explain to you that I am one that definitely has a problem with paying insurance and car insurance and all these other insurance. I got a big problem with that. I don't know about everybody else, but I do. But I pay it because we have to pay it. As far as the insurance you were just talking about, at what age should you start? Would you suggest to start that investment?
Specifically for insurance?
Yes.
So that's a great question too. Now, insurance is one of those things that I tell people, it's not like you can just go buy it. Just in general, it's better, it's always better to have bought your insurance yesterday, always. Because insurance is actually the price of what you pay is based on your age, and it's also based on your health. It's underwritten. It's one of the things that you fill out an application for. You apply to get coverage, and then you have a whole department that looks at your age, your health, and every year, believe it or not, the price goes up, 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 and up. So if you can lock in a price when you were younger, it's going to be cheaper than if you were looking at it today. Does that make sense?
It does, but as you get older, that price is still going to go up, right? Even if you start younger,
Yeah, it's always on sale.
it's
So
always,
and
yeah.
let me give you my definition. Again, I talked about biblical principles. Proverbs 13 and 22 simply says how you can tell you have a good man or woman. All right. Does anybody know biblically how somebody is defined as a good man or woman?
Is that the virtuous woman as far as?
They can take care of their household.
Yeah, yep. Mhm.
Absolutely. So Proverbs 13 and 22 says, a good man or woman, because we're talking about man and woman, leaves an inheritance to
Yeah.
their children's children,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. So basically, what that means is I encourage people to have a longer view because we're, again, in the sweet spot. We have vision for our life, and then we have God's vision for our life, and we got to meet in the middle. The middle means that if we have alignment, we can't just think about ourselves, right? We have to be thinking about who we're responsible for. And really, a while ago, I was reading a book about leadership, and it said, when you have more responsibility, basically, you don't have a choice of what you choose to do and not do. Because the more responsibility, the more people depend on you, you have an obligation to meet those needs. That's called love, meeting a need before it arises, right?
Mhm.
And so there are certain things that we have to have in place that oftentimes we make decisions based on where we are today. And we just need to make better choices. And there's solutions for everything. So I don't want, people to think, well, it's I'm too old now. I can't do anything. That's not true. We can begin because everything is case by case. So there are things that you can still do to get things in order. So hopefully I answered your question.
There was a comment made. I want to make sure we get clarity on that. I think it may have been Joy that said it that even if you get insurance, the price will still keep going up every year. I think is that what was said? Because
Yes, yes,
okay,
because he stated that if you got insurance when you were young, it's of course it's cheaper. However, it's still going up. Yes.
no, so
Depending on what kind of insurance you get.
right. So we
Yeah.
didn't clarify that, Robert.
Absolutely. So actually, there's ways for you to lock in the price where it never goes up anymore. And really, what I show people how to do is actually put a plan in place to where eventually it doesn't cost you anything. Because let me ask you a question, just like a home. We say the home is your best investment, right? And we say that because if you live in that home long enough, what's going to happen to the value?
It's going to appreciate.
It's going to
Go up.
appreciate, right? And you say, well, I got equity. Like I bought the house for 100,000, but now it's 300,000. So it's actually worth more than I had to pay for it, right?
Right.
Well, if you have the right policy in place, the same thing happens. You can begin to start a policy and start funding that policy. And after a particular year, you can actually look back and be like, wow, I'm actually making more money with this policy than I actually am paying into the policy. Now, the issue is, and I'll just keep it real, in this country, we have a lot of policies that have been institutionalized and codified. And so they tell us just enough to be dangerous, right? You guys remember the debit man that would come by and get the insurance premium every week,
Yep.
right? Those were the result of really racist practices targeting people like us in our community who went to work. We had an income, and they said, well, hey, what happens? Oh, you need some final expense. You need something to cover those, if you die, you don't want to leave that money over to your family, which is right. But if you think about it, so my company is called Bankable because I actually want you to think like the bank, right? I want you to be the benefactor of all the financial decisions that you make. Okay. And so I'm saying that the debit man would come and grandma faithfully would pay, boom, 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 not really doing all the calculations of how much money is this over the next 10, 15, 20, and 30 years, right? But what I say is they got us paying taxes while we're living, and they got us paying taxes when we die, and they make sure that they give us those little policies to make sure that whatever money we owed, that we have one more payment that we can make to them. And so what we want to do is make sure that we set up your personal financial economy. Let me share this one more thing. This is what I focus on here. I focus on making sure that we set up your life in a situation where you can be fruitful and you can multiply, right? Being fruitful and multiply means that if you have a fruit, the beautiful thing about a fruit is if I have an apple, you can tell me how many seeds are in an apple, right?
Yes.
You know what you can't tell me? How many apples are actually in that seed?
Mm.
And so if you actually look at God's plan and the way that he operates and you begin to have alignment with that, there's actually a way for you to build your personal economy to where you have a sequence where your consumption just produces more instead of scarcity. Oh, we don't have enough. We're going to run out. No. God looks at things in abundance. There's more than enough, right? And that's what we can tap into when we have the proper information and we make the right decisions. And so the thing that I wanted to say about that is that prosperity is really not what you have, it's who you have. And so you're surrounded by brilliant people right now. You have a community. There are things that we can do together to make sure. Let me use that phrase. Do we have any cooks or bakers on the line?
Yeah, I cook and bake. Yeah,
Cook and
everybody.
bake.
Everybody
Have
does.
you ever tried to show somebody how to get in the kitchen and actually follow your recipe?
No.
No? Oh, well, you look. It's time for you to grab somebody and say, come here, baby. I'm about to show you how to bake a cake, right? But the thing that I wanted to share with you is even though you have a recipe and you have ingredients, you have things, and there's an order that you need to put those things. Is that correct?
Yes.
So if you're baking a cake and you say, oh, I got eggs, I got flour, I got sugar, I got butter, I got this, I got that, but you don't put them in the batter together or you rush the process, how's that cake going to come out?
It won't.
It won't come out, right? The same thing applies to what we've been talking about. Take what you already know to money. Money has a particular order where if you have the things and you have the correct sequence, it will create something that perpetually flows. So when money is earned, however you get your money, when it comes in, the first thing we know to do is to save it, right? We all know that. That's not earth-shattering information. But then the third thing that we have to do is we actually have to lend it because the Bible says that we are lenders and not borrowers. Is that right?
Mhm.
Right.
Then the fourth thing is now we spend it. And then because we lent it, now that money is being returned. This is how we begin to create an economy that is fruitful and it multiplies. Where you put you put overalls on your money, you send it out and it works for you, or I like to say it goes and makes money babies. All your money should make money babies. Does that make sense?
That's good stuff.
Yes, it makes sense.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So I have a question. I just turned 70, and in my family, in my growing up, none of this, my father didn't know about it, my mother didn't know about it. All of these steps you take, to ensure the future of your children. And I'm just learning about it seriously in the last few years. So where do I start now? I just got into a whole life policy with Lakeisha. She helped me get into one, and I don't know where to go from here. Because I call it residual income. I don't call it fixed income.
Yeah.
And retirement has never been part of my plan because I'm an artist and a creator, and I don't plan to ever retire from that.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome. Well, I just want to congratulate you for putting something in place. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you guys, this is a philosophy. Y'all know how God works, right?
yeah, I do.
He says, I'll just put it to you like this. He likes for you to be in impossible situations so that he can show up and show you that there's no situation bigger than him. So there's always things that you can do. There's actually still great things that you can do given the right information. And so that's what we have an opportunity to do. If you want to continue this conversation, there's ways for us to get together, assess what your situation is, what you're working with, and we can say, okay, well, here's a plan that will work for you in this situation. Trust me, there's still things we can do.
Okay, because my daughter, she'll be 42. She works for Apple from home, and I just want her to continue, but do more than what I've done.
Absolutely.
I'm saying,
Absolutely.
so, yeah.
And she will, because you focused on it. We just have to have the conversations and we have to make it a priority. I did see somebody put in the chat, never get term insurance, period. Well, what is the best insurance policy to have?
Well, actually, with Lakeisha, she told us both of them.
I think it depends on your situation. It depends on, it's an individual thing. Everybody's life is different and depending on what they need.
Yeah.
Yep. And after 20 plus years of experience, what I will share with you is the best life insurance policy is the one that pays.
All right.
Period.
Period, huh?
Period. So me, I have term insurance. I have whole life insurance. I have IUL insurance.
What's the third one?
Index Universal Life, IUL.
What is that?
So I'm not trying. So basically, that's a permanent policy that builds cash value so that you have access to the things that I was talking about. You have a bucket of money inside the policy that you have access to. And that particular policy is tied to an index. So its performance means that it can make more money, but in a down market, I can't lose any money. That's all the IUL is. And there's no one thing that's for everybody. It literally is case. So I remember the very first suit that I bought from Back Rack at Fairlane Mall back in the day. I got it off the rack. How did it fit me?
It didn't.
Not well.
But
I had to start somewhere, right? And then I learned that I could go to a tailor and a tailor can take my measurements and they could cut it up and make it fit better, right? The biggest thing you have to do is start. And once you start, continue to have conversations, continue to learn, to continue to make better choices and to right size things until it's tailor made. That's what I do. Go ahead, Stacy.
Yeah, the reason why I say don't get term insurance, period, is because I think it just depends on how much education you have around it when you actually get it. I was in my 20s when I got it, and now I am 62, and what I originally paid for $250,000 worth of life insurance was a little bit over $200, and now today, starting in April, the amount that I have to pay went from 1,100 and something dollars to I will have to pay over $3,300 starting in April. So I had to discontinue that policy because I can no longer afford it.
Well, that's common. That's common. And here's also what's common. And this is one thing I don't like about the industry. The person that you got that life insurance policy from, do you still have communication with that person?
Their communication is in the toilet.
Okay.
And they don't have any recourse for me. I mean, I could probably do something a little bit less for still a lot of money. So
Yeah.
I just opted to get insurance with Lakeisha for term insurance.
Yep.
Life
Listen.
insurance, sorry.
Yep. She'll take care of you. But here's the thing I want you all to know. I actually tell people to start with term, because one of the things you can do is actually get a lot of coverage for a small amount of money. And then when you stay in communication and you actually have a holistic plan, you can begin to take chunks of that coverage and make it permanent. So you'll never be without coverage. So,
And my
like
insurance agent never kept in touch with me at all through the whole, like over 20 years. I had that in policy.
Yeah, that's true. That happens a lot. And that's why we have these calls, because we want to begin to give proper information and education so that we can make better decisions. But there's things that we can still do. There's still things that can be done. That's basically what I wanted to say. Go ahead, Lakeisha.
States, one thing I would like to encourage is that, we can't always put things in other people's hands. Like, it's very important that you have policy reviews. A lot of people don't like to have policy reviews, but sometimes when you write those life insurance policies, you don't look at it anymore. So that's why I always make sure that you have a primary as well as a contingent, a secondary, because you want to make sure that that's in place. Years ago, I used to have fellow agents, they wouldn't do it because they felt like we didn't understand. But it's simple, if you don't use the word contingent, secondary, something happens to this person, have somebody else, in line. So it's very important that you have policy reviews, and look over your policies, because things in life change. You might get married, grandkids, some additional, things may happen. So you definitely want to do that. Also, as far as people ask me that question all the time, is term better than whole life? Term better than whole life? Most of my clients have both. And it all depends. It's individual. What is your goal? That's what it depends on. What is your goal? Unfortunately, Stacey, you didn't have a person to do a policy review throughout the year, so you would have never been in that position. And then they have something called a return of premium. And that's pretty much what I always do with my clients, is a return of premium if I can. Sometimes they resist because it costs a little bit more, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the return, or what is that one, Lakeisha?
The return of premium, yes. So, like Stacey had her policy for 30 years. If she was young, they pretty much did like 30 years. So, God forbid. If nothing happened to Stacey in them 30 years, you get all your money back.
Really?
The one that I have, you get all your money, but you have options at the end. You got option A, option 2, option 3. I'm not going to go through all the options, but you have options at the end. So at the end of her 30 years, she get all her money back. And then you can decide.
I get my money back now?
You didn't have a return of premium. Unfortunately, during that time, it didn't even exist. They didn't have the return of premiums at that, at that time that you got that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
So how often should you do it, a review? Maybe once a year? or if you know, if not, if definitely when there's been changes in your family, you add a person or
Yeah,
get
or
married,
somebody died.
but on a general case, it should be once a year or every other year at least. What do you think?
I'd say once.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
no,
would
go
say
ahead.
once a year. I'm gonna be honest with you because you have to be in constant communication. Like she said, return of premium wasn't available when like things change all the time. So you want to make sure you have the best information available to you. Every year, things should be things should be changing every year. You should be getting more money every year. Your net worth should be growing every year. You should be taking what you know and passing it on to the people in your life so they'll know what to do when they get to where you are. It should happen every single year. And if it's not, for me, that's what we want to do. We want to begin to make sure that more people are here getting educated. There's other opportunities for us to get together and go deep on particular subjects. There's things that we can do when we have a strong foundation to begin to lock arms with one another and do some collective economics. There's a bunch that we can do. And so I would always say every single year, like your net work is your net worth because one idea can transform everything. You don't know what you don't know, right? And if you see the most dangerous thing that I tell people, wisdom is available to you. Asking it will be given, seeking you will find, knocking the door will be open. And I'm gonna be honest when I say this. Ignorance is a prerequisite for wisdom. If you think you already know, there's no room for you to improve. There's nothing better that you can do, right? You got to deal with what you got. But I can say this, and I said this to my mother the other day. I said, Mom, your life now is the result of your best choices and best decisions. So if you want something different, you have to make better decisions with new and better information. That's life. And I love what you said, Ms. Picard. So retirement ain't in my game plan. Nowhere. When I looked in the scriptures, I didn't see retirement nowhere. That's a man's plan. That ain't our plan, right? We need new information. We need to think differently, do things differently, speak differently. That's why I love Grand Rising. Like, what are you getting from today? Today, you've been exposed to some information. This should not be the only time that you have this conversation. Keep asking, keep talking. Like, I put my contact information in the comments. So just that you guys have it. If you want to continue the conversation, I'm available, to just have a conversation. If Lakeisha's taking care of you, I'm gonna send you right back to Lakeisha, right? We're trained in the industry to be transactional. That's why your agent sold a policy and you didn't hear him, right? I don't like that. I'm about education, making sure you actually understand what you have, why you have it, and make sure you pass that knowledge to the next person. I'm kingdom focused. Like, what's the greatest commandment? He said to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and to love your who?
Neighbor.
As yourself. Okay, so if I want you to do better, because I want to do better, I got to make sure that you got more information, right?
Star?
I noticed that you said, Mr. Reid, that retirement is not in the Bible. It's interesting that when God told me to leave my job, he did not use the word retire. He just said that it's time to let it go.
That's right.
I thought that was interesting that you said that. I didn't know that retirement wasn't in the Bible.
Not in there. Because you're created for a purpose, right? There's a role and there's things that we're supposed to continue to do in different seasons of our life. And so when we may not be working a job because now we need to put our talents, gifts, and ideas on other things that are more important than just making a living. Your whole life shouldn't be consumed with making a living, paying the bills, right? Yeah. So people who are poor, and I'm not talking about what money you have in your bank account, zero money in the bank account is broke. Poor is a mentality of passing over opportunities to learn, passing over opportunities to get better, right? So when you get money, poor people think that the purpose of money is to go buy stuff and things. They're just consuming all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's where our economy is. Middle class people think the purpose of money is to pay bills and get nice things and gadgets. Wealthy people know that the purpose of money is what?
Assets.
To make more money.
Mhm.
That is the purpose of money. And money is actually a spiritual byproduct of what you're doing. So again, like I said, you have everything that you need. Y'all remember the story of the woman whose husband died, and she went to Elijah and said, "Teacher, your servant has died. What am I going to do? We about to lose everything. I got a boy at home." You say, "What you want me to do about it?" Don't y'all think that's a weird response?
Mm.
What you want me to do? You bringing your problem. What you want me to do?
Mhm.
You need to go home. You need to look at what you have.
Mhm.
Go collect some jars. Go borrow some jars from your neighbors, community, right? Fill them up with oil and then go sell the oil. You need to change your game plan. Stop looking for somebody else to come save you, because I'll just be honest with you, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody. And I really want that to sink in, especially with this administration. The things that they're doing, it's over, guys. The reset button has already happened.
Mhm.
You need to
Wait a
change your
minute.
game plan. You need to lock your arms and you need to say, what can I do? What do I have? If you can bake, you need to be baking something and selling something. If you can do art, you need to be sharing it with the world, right? There is something everybody can do, but we have to go inward to make it happen.
And this has been
Wow.
awesome. And I know if Miss Lakeisha was running this, she'd be saying we're almost at the 10 o'clock hour.
Okay, now it's 10 o'clock.
But this has been great conversation. Dr. Reid, I'm always impressed with you, sir. But I'm just proud of this moment. You brought a very powerful conversation to the table, and I know that we've all benefited from it. And as he indicated earlier, he did leave his digital card in the chat. I do want to encourage everybody to get a chance to get that so you can continue these conversations. This platform is absolutely powerful. And what Lakeisha is building here is opportunity for us to be exposed to life-changing information. And so we want to be praying for this platform because this is something very, very special. We're having conversations that the average person is not having. And so that's a real blessing. And so with that said, we're going to get ready to wrap up. We're definitely going to have Dr. Reid back again. I'm sure that's already in Lakeisha's mind. And so we'll definitely have that plan for the future. And I just want to encourage everybody to follow the Elizabeths, right? Also, Ask Madam Finance on Facebook and Instagram. These are opportunities to stay plugged in and continue to get this information. And I want you to decide to be better today than you were yesterday. Do you realize that by improving every day just simply 1%, in the next 100 days, you will be 100% better than you are today? So make up your mind that you're going to constantly be improving. Be a better version of yourself. And I'm going to leave you with this. Until next time, make today your masterpiece. Let's do it, family. All right, till next time, we're closing out.
You guys give yourself a hug.
I'm gonna let you lead that because that's
Go ahead, Lakeisha.
Give yourself a hug. And I want to say thank you so much, Dr. Hoover and Doc Reid. I really, really, we all appreciate you so very much with this powerful information. I thank everyone for taking out the time to work on their personal development and to grow and willing to grow. I really just pat yourself on the back.
absolutely.
Pat yourself on the back. Let's hug the world because the world needs a hug too.
Yes.
And let's sprinkle love, peace, and happiness
Yes.
to those that are in authority because they need it.
Yes, they do.
Enough people seeing enough love, peace, and happiness over there that way.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised of the changes that could be made. So peace out. I love you all. Pray for me. Tomorrow is the big day.
Yes.
And I will keep you all posted.
I should.
Good.
Have a blessed day on purpose.